So you might be curious, why is a neurobiological perspective of sleep important? Because having an understanding of the neurobiological processes at work during sleep, even a cursory understanding, will help to remove any bias or misinformation you might have about sleep and will ultimately contribute to a greater understanding of how important it is to the human organism. From memory consolidation to cellular maintenance, sleep entails a symphony of processes within the brain. Since there's so much detail in what's happening, the focus of this video will be on the maintenance theory of sleep, which involves the brain's waste management system, the glymphatic clearance pathway. Without going into too much anatomical detail, the glymphatic system is essentially an oscillating sequence of convective processes. Interstitial fluid, which exists outside of cells within the brain's tissues, collects neurotoxic waste and exchanges it with the cerebrospinal fluid, which is busy being secreted by specialized vents in the brain called ventricles. Taken from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society's website, cerebrospinal fluid is a clear, colorless liquid that bathes the brain and spinal cord. While the primary function of cerebrospinal fluid is to cushion the brain within the skull and serve as a shock absorber for the central nervous system, CSF also circulates nutrients and chemicals filtered from the blood and removes waste products from the brain. Pictured here is a sagittal view of the brain, or cut down the middle. The areas in blue represent the spaces occupied by cerebrospinal fluid. The ventricles are its points of origin, beginning with the choroid plexus. From the brain, the fluid oscillates out of the ventricles and moves down the central nervous system through the spinal column. Eventually, it circulates back up for reabsorption. In other words, not only does the fluid serve to insulate and cushion the brain, but it's also actively transporting and filtering through a milieu of substances. See, the cells in our bodies are fundamentally like engines. They perpetually consume ATP energy, and they produce exhaust in the form of metabolic byproducts, such as ammonia or misfolded B-amyloid proteins. CSF collects this material as it circulates, as well as providing transportation support for neurotransmitters and other endocrine substances. Recent neuroimaging research has revealed a critical period in which CSF is the most active within the central nervous system: sleep. A 2013 study by Z et al. Used fluorescent tracers to follow the activity of CSF within the brains of a rodent sample. They found that circulating levels of CSF were highest during sleep, with up to a 60% increase in interstitial space. By the way, interstitial space is where cellular waste gets excreted before being filtered by the cerebrospinal fluid circulating outside. Researchers also found that the amounts of circulating tracer were reduced by 95% upon wakefulness, suggesting that CSF is mostly active during rest. What's more is that a 2015 study conducted by most of the same team found additional support for the influence of body posture on CSF flow. Interestingly, mice that slept in the lateral position were found to have the most efficient waste removal. Now that we have a better understanding of how the brain manages its waste, we can open the door to a different topic altogether: neurological and/or neurodegenerative disease. It's probably easier now to imagine what effects sleep deprivation might have on the glymphatic system. Less sleep means more toxic buildup and a generally dirtier brain. From here, a number of possibilities could begin to unfold, such as aggregations of misfolded B-amyloid proteins. Large clusters of these proteins are found in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Aggregations are also present in Lewy body dementia, Huntington's disease, Parkinson's disease, and many others. While it's not known exactly how much neurotoxicity it takes to incite any one of these conditions, Research nonetheless seems to support the idea that maintaining healthy sleep hygiene is indeed a lifelong process. The glymphatic system is merely one component in a complex sequence of processes happening within the brain during sleep. There's no telling exactly how much long-term impact repeated sleep deprivation has on something like memory consolidation, for example. But seeing as how we live in our brains, allotting the proper time for it to rest is critical.